And this is really something that we weren't actually expecting or watching closely. So just give us the latest of the situation at sea.
That's right, Sherry. You know, most of us have been at home because of the COVID-19 pandemic and ordering items on Amazon and other places, but not really thinking how these items are getting to us, how these things are being transported, and not really aware that there's a humanitarian and global chain crisis on the seas right now. You know, we depend on about 1.6 million seafarers who work on oil tankers. They work on cargo ships to transport everything we use, from toys to medicines to steel. And because of the pandemic, governments have closed borders and ports. You know, air flights and travel have been curtailed. And that's stopping crew on these ships from getting home to their families, too. So based off our reporting, you know, we found that there are some 300,000 crews on ships who have been stranded on these vessels, and they can't get off. Some now, if you can believe it, for as long as 21 months. This is months after the contracts have ended. And what's also troubling is that, of course, this crisis is likely to get worse.
And what are we seeing in terms of efforts to help them get off these ships?
You know, it's a patchwork of things. You know, there's companies responsible for every ship and its crew, but then you also have manning agencies that recruited them. There's the operator or the ship's manager that runs the crew on the ship, and of course the charter whose goods are being transported. So some of these companies, especially the owners and the managers, they're working with the port authorities, they're working with the government to lobby them to ease these restrictions at the ports and the borders to get these guys home. But right now, they're saying that, you know, though some ports have opened, there are lots of restrictions, they're really cumbersome. It's difficult to get these guys, and as a result, so many are still stuck on the ships. We have seen some companies actually divert their ships to, like, the nearest port. Sometimes it's, you know, thousands of miles away to get these guys off. But really, the reality is that not enough companies are doing it because it's too expensive for them, because it may delay shipments. So that's really the problem. Now, what we didn't get a chance to talk about yet is the conditions that we're seeing on board. I mean, I and a team of, you know, these Bloomberg reporters around the world, we spoke to more than 40 seafarers on different and various kinds of vessels, and we found some really troubling violations of international maritime law. You know, the protections for these seafarers are really no longer there. You know, they're often instructed not to speak to media, but these guys are so desperate that they wanted to tell us their stories. They've told us that, you know, almost half of them, or actually more than half of them, are working on ships without a current contract. Total violation of maritime law. They're being directed, sometimes threatened to sign contract extensions, and they feel they have no choice but to do so, or they might not get rehired again. They've told us they're not being paid for their work, sometimes 2 months without pay. So it's a very desperate situation for these guys. And like I said, it's bound to get worse before it gets better.
Juanha, so what does this all mean then eventually for consumers at the other side?
That's a good question. And, you know, like I said, all of the experts are saying unless we get these guys off the ship, some of them are going to stop working, which we've already seen. You know, because of their violations, you know, the ships are being held at some ports by authorities when they find the violations. What this means is that eventually, if this problem isn't solved, our products are not going to come to us. You know, the trade is going to get disrupted because these guys can't get off and their replacements can't get on. Of course, that's going to be disastrous for companies, consumer companies, and because right now we're right ahead of the Christmas season. So it might be a really choppy Christmas season with trade disrupted, with products not coming if this problem isn't resolved soon.